Now, ladies and gentlemen, here with tonight's top 10 list, the host of The Tonight Show for 30 years, Johnny Carson.
Johnny Carson was the king of late night, but his famous smile hid a dark secret. He kept a list, not of friends, but of the 9 golden age guests he knew were hiding truly evil behavior. We're pulling back the curtain on the Hollywood icons who charmed America on Carson's couch, only to reveal their monstrous true selves the moment the cameras stopped. From an actress's brutal backstage tirade to a beloved star's disturbing dressing room incident, Carson saw it all. These weren't just difficult divas. They were, in Johnny's own words, genuinely dark people. Monsters behind the applause. When Joan Crawford appeared on The Tonight Show in 1970, viewers saw the gracious Hollywood legend they'd admired for decades. With her perfect posture, immaculate appearance, and practiced charm, Crawford was the picture of old Hollywood glamour. But according to multiple Tonight Show staff members, Crawford's off-camera behavior revealed a very different person. "She was one of the coldest people I've ever interviewed," Carson reportedly told his biographer years later, "like talking to a beautiful statue with nothing inside." The problems began before she even arrived. Her demands were legendary. And get this, they included specific lighting requirements so detailed that the show's technical director still had the 4-page memo in his files. Decades later, everything had to be precise. The angle of her chair, the height of Johnny's desk, even the temperature of the studio. It had to be exactly 67 degrees Fahrenheit, not 66, not 68. When Crawford finally arrived 3 hours before taping, she brought her own makeup team, snubbing the show's award-winning artists. But what truly revealed Crawford's character was how she treated people based on their rank. "She practically curtsied to Johnny," said a stagehand. But when a young production assistant accidentally entered her dressing room with the water Crawford had requested, the star exploded. Witnesses say Crawford launched into a tirade so vicious that staff members in the hallway froze. She allegedly called the assistant, a 20-year-old woman just starting out, a brainless little fool and suggested she find work where her incompetence might be valued. The young woman fled in tears. Crawford then demanded she be fired. Carson's producer refused, creating a tension that lasted all night. The most disturbing part? The way she transformed the second the cameras turned on. She was like a machine pretending to be a woman, one producer recalled. During commercial breaks, Crawford would immediately drop her smile and sit in stone-faced silence. Then, instantly, she would reanimate when the red light came back on. The crazy part is, years later, when Christina Crawford's memoir, Mommy Dearest, revealed Joan's alleged abuse, Carson wasn't surprised at all. He simply nodded and said, "I saw who she really was. I believe every word." While Crawford was ice, Frank Sinatra was fire. On screen, he and Johnny shared a friendly relationship. The legendary singer would joke and tell stories. Behind the scenes, however, Carson reportedly harbored a deep dislike for Sinatra. Not for his talent, but for how he treated people. If he didn't sing, he'd be a mob enforcer, Carson once told a friend. And sometimes I think he was both. Sinatra's appearances were notorious. He would arrive with an entourage of up to 8 men, described by staff as not show business types, more like guys you wouldn't want to meet in an alley. These men would spread through the studio, creating an atmosphere one cameraman called like being under surveillance. But what truly disturbed Carson was Sinatra's bullying. During one appearance, a floor manager made the mistake of giving Sinatra the standard 3-minute warning. Witnesses say Sinatra grabbed the man by his tie, pulled him close, and whispered, "Nobody tells me when I've got 3 minutes. I'll go on when I'm ready." The floor manager, a war veteran in his 50s, was visibly shaken. Yeah, about that. When Carson saw this from his monitor, he nearly canceled the segment. Only the producer's reminder of the ratings Sinatra brought convinced him to continue. After that, Carson's team had to deal with Sinatra's unreliability. He allegedly canceled appearances last minute, including once just 2 hours before taping, even though he was already in the building. He just wasn't in the mood. The final straw came during a commercial break when Sinatra made a disparaging comment about a female staff member's appearance. Carson, breaking his usual calm, coldly responded, "We don't talk about my staff that way here." The tension was obvious. After that, Carson told his producer to limit Sinatra to once a year maximum. But the tyrants weren't just men. Betty Davis was Hollywood's queen of verbal violence. Audiences saw a witty legend. The staff saw someone so abrasive that even Carson was taken aback. "She doesn't need a stage, she needs a courtroom," Johnny allegedly told Ed McMahon. "No one should have to be cross-examined by Bette Davis without a lawyer present." Davis would interrupt or talk over other guests, especially if they were younger. A talent coordinator recalled, "She would physically turn her back on other guests on the couch. If someone else got a laugh, you could see her seething." Behind the scenes, it was worse. She reportedly demanded whiskey in her dressing room and would berate the staff, using language that shocked even by the standards of that time. One makeup artist recalled Davis refusing her services, asking for someone else. The breaking point for Carson came when Davis berated a cue card holder for being too slow during a rehearsal. Johnny actually stepped in. A production assistant remembered. He very quietly told her, "Miss Davis, on this show we speak to everyone with respect, or we don't speak at all." She was stunned. After her final appearance, Carson reportedly told his producer, "That's the last time, life's too short." These tyrants were bad, but the next group's egos were so big, they tried to hijack the entire show, too famous to follow rules. Orson Welles was a genius. His appearances on The Tonight Show were always memorable, filled with booming stories. Viewers saw a brilliant legend. Carson and his staff saw something else. A man whose ego was so enormous that he believed the rules of television simply didn't apply to him. "Never again," Carson reportedly said after one difficult Welles appearance. "That guy thinks he's still running Rome." The problem started before Welles even arrived. According to writers, Welles would dismiss any prepared questions. "He told us our questions were pedestrian and obvious," one writer recalled. "He literally crossed them all out and handed back an empty page." This put Carson in the tough spot of interviewing a giant with no framework, all while Welles would launch into long, rambling stories. And get this, during one appearance, Welles was scheduled for a 7-minute segment. He stayed on the couch for nearly 25 minutes. He completely ignored the subtle cues from Carson that it was time to wrap up. "Johnny had a series of signals," a director explained. "Welles saw them all and just kept talking." What most people don't realize is they had to bump 2 other guests entirely because Welles wouldn't stop. His behavior toward staff was just as bad. He reportedly refused to speak directly to production assistants, addressing them in the third person, "Tell the girl I need more water." What really irritated Carson was Welles's habit of trying to take over. Basically, he once actually stood up and tried to tell the camera operators which angles to use. Johnny was livid. He told Ed McMahon, "Genius doesn't excuse everything." If Welles's ego was about art, Zsa Gabor's was about pure diva behavior. She was a Tonight Show favorite, appearing dozens of times. Viewers saw a charming, over-the-top personality. Behind the scenes, she was one of the most demanding guests in the show's history. "I'd rather interview a cat," Carson quipped. "At least the cat wouldn't need 3 assistants and special lighting." Gabor's demands were legendary. Her standard rider included a specific dressing room temperature of 74 degrees, fresh orchids only, no carnations, and a bottle of Perrier with exactly 3 ice cubes. She also demanded her own lighting technician be flown in at the show's expense. But here's the catch. She also demanded no female guests who were younger than 40 be booked on the same episode. "We thought it was a joke the first time we got it," recalled a talent coordinator. When these demands weren't met, Gabor would refuse to leave her dressing room, delaying taping. One of the most infamous incidents happened when she discovered the makeup department didn't have her preferred brand of foundation. Witnesses say she got into a shouting match with the head makeup artist, demanding someone be sent to Beverly Hills immediately to buy it. Johnny had to intervene personally, calling her to say, "Zsa, honey, you look beautiful already. We have a show to do." While Gabor was a diva, Shelley Winters was an unpredictable powder keg. A 2-time Oscar winner, she should have been an ideal guest. In reality, she was one of Carson's most volatile. "Shelley doesn't talk, she detonates," Carson reportedly said. Winters became infamous for her inability to stick to the lighthearted format. She would launch into intense political rants or deeply personal confessions that left Carson visibly uncomfortable. During one appearance, a simple question about a film evolved into Winters delivering a 5-minute uninterrupted monologue about government corruption. Johnny was a master of controlling conversations, recalled a director, but with Shelley it was like trying to steer a tornado. Her unpredictability wasn't just verbal. She became known for physical outbursts. On another talk show, she famously threw a glass of whiskey in a fellow guest's face. This reputation made the Tonight Show staff nervous. A stage manager admitted, "We would actually remove certain items from the set when we knew she was coming. Anything that could be thrown would mysteriously disappear." But colossal egos were one thing. The next guests brought behavior that was just plain wrong. Truly evil behavior. Mickey Rooney was Hollywood royalty, a former #1 box office star. His appearances should have been nostalgic celebrations. Instead, according to staff, Rooney's visits became notorious for his inappropriate behavior and chaotic energy. "He thinks being short gives him license to be a creep," Carson reportedly told his producer after one problematic appearance in the mid-70s. Rooney, then in his mid-50s, developed a reputation among female staff for unwanted touching and suggestive comments. Young production assistants would ask to be reassigned when they learned Rooney was booked. He would grab your hand, try to pull you closer, ask if you were married, recalled a former assistant. If you tried to leave, he'd hold onto your wrist just a little too long. Even more concerning, Rooney appeared visibly intoxicated during at least 3 separate appearances, slurring his words. During one infamous segment, he began telling an inappropriate story about Judy Garland, forcing Carson to cut him off. During the break, Carson reportedly asked, "Is he drunk or is this just who he is now?" After one show where Rooney made repeated comments about a young actress also on the panel, Carson took the unusual step of apologizing to her personally. "I've never seen Johnny so embarrassed," the director recalled. True to his word, Rooney's appearances became far less frequent. While Rooney's behavior was hands-on, Jane Russell's was ideological and to Carson just as offensive. Russell was an iconic symbol of the 40s and 50s, yet after a few appearances in the early 70s, she rarely returned. Show insiders say this stemmed from Carson's discomfort with her extreme political views and her treatment of LGBTQ+ staff members. Carson, while personally a moderate, kept his show neutral. Russell, however, reportedly used backstage interactions to express hardline views that Carson found troubling. What bothered him was when those opinions turned into personal attacks. According to several accounts, Russell made disparaging comments about gay individuals working on the show. During one appearance, she allegedly refused to allow a gay makeup artist to touch her face, demanding a replacement. The crazy part is, she also reportedly refused to be booked on the same episode as Rock Hudson, making derogatory comments about his private life, which was known within Hollywood circles. A talent coordinator recalled, "Johnny had many friends in the gay community. He was ahead of his time in not tolerating that kind of discrimination." The final breaking point came in 1973 when Russell made dismissive comments about civil rights. After that appearance, she was noticeably absent from the guest roster. Carson had personally vetoed her. But perhaps Carson's most intense dislike was reserved for a comedian, Jerry Lewis. Lewis was a groundbreaking entertainer and a famed humanitarian. Behind the scenes, he was known as one of the most difficult, demeaning celebrities in Hollywood. "He's what happens when ego outruns talent," Carson reportedly told a colleague. Unlike other guests, Lewis reportedly made no secret of his disdain for Carson himself. He would talk over Johnny and hijack questions. And get this, in one infamous appearance, Lewis actually reached over and adjusted Carson's tie without permission. Johnny hated people touching him, a producer explained. It was a well-known rule. Lewis knew this and did it anyway as a power move. His treatment of the crew was even worse. He would refuse to learn staffers' names, referring to them as "Hey you" or "Camera guy." One disturbing incident occurred when a camera operator coughed quietly during a rehearsal. Witnesses say Lewis stopped everything and launched into a tirade, screaming that the cameraman breathes like an amateur and demanding he be removed. The poor guy had allergies, a floor manager confirmed. What Carson found most objectionable was the Jekyll and Hyde routine. He'd watch Jerry cry on his telethon about loving children, then come to the show and treat people like they were subhuman. After Lewis's final appearance, Carson told his producer simply, "Never again." Did these Golden Age legends deserve their fame despite their secrets? Let us know your thoughts below. Make sure to like this video and subscribe for more dark Hollywood stories.